The Mental Wind Down with Stu and Henriette, a show talking all things mental health.
Hello, welcome to episode 4 of The Mental Wind Down. It's been about 10 days since the last one.
Yeah.
Just with booking people in, but we're live tonight for a lad that you know, that I'm going to get to know.
Yeah.
Nothing much has changed, really.
Same old
We've
same.
carried on doing the COVID kitchen, so every Friday we're cooking live. Well, I am.
You are.
Henry just
I'm
sits there and a glass of wine.
I'm sometimes working at the same time.
With wine.
With wine. Yeah, that's it. Nothing really
It's just
happening.
Groundhog Day, isn't it?
Yeah, getting a bit bored of it now.
Do you remember that film, Groundhog Day?
Yes, I've seen it.
With Gene Hackman.
Was it Gene Hackman?
Whoa, I don't know where that come from. Yeah, Gene Hackman.
Mm.
Yeah, great film. But yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel, so now we can have bubbles.
Yeah.
So my mum is using us as a bubble.
She lives on her own, doesn't she? So.
Yeah. And the light for the gym opening is very, very close. I think 5 weeks.
You hope? Yeah.
Hope. Yeah. If Bozza the man gives us the all clear on the 4th.
He gives the green light. Yeah.
But yeah, nothing much. Going to see the kids this week. First time in 14 weeks, something like that.
Yeah.
13 weeks.
That'll be good for Father's Day on Sunday.
It's going to be good.
I'm still working lots.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nothing really has gone on, or nothing to report, really.
No.
Normally, we in the radio show, we usually have a rant about the media. If I started today, I'd be there for ever.
We're not doing it.
No. The world's gone mad. Please stop. I want to get off.
So we're not doing that.
No. So we'll wait and we'll get Nicholas now.
Yeah.
When he comes on.
Yeah. Which won't be long.
See you in a bit.
Bye. So, welcome to podcast number 5. This week we've got the very lovely Nicholas Jemetta with us. We met last year because Nick did the This Can Happen Awards, and you were shortlisted and won your category, which was very good. And we have sort of talked ever since and talked a lot through This Can Happen because you do a lot of work within mental health in the workplace. So I want you to sort of introduce yourself a little bit about your passion and what you've done so far in your mental health journey, really.
So, well, first, thank you very much for having me. It's been a heck of a ride, considering This Can Happen was only at the end of last year. So I'm Nick Jemetta. I work for Sainsbury's. I work in a technology or digital role. And I've only really been active in the mental health space for 2 years.
Yeah.
Can't quite believe it's only been that long because it's been a heck of a roller coaster ride in those 2 years. So my own mental health story I only shared publicly 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it kind of predates back to when I was at university, which is unfortunately a long time ago. So I'm 36 now. So when I was 18, I'd kind of gone into university with a history of really someone that suffered from anxiety, although I didn't call it that at the time, but I always felt like I didn't have a place in the world. I felt quite isolated. I didn't really know how to make friends, particularly with men. I struggled with the concept of what I felt society required me to be as a man. I just didn't tick any of that in my head. I didn't tick any of the supposed boxes. I was enthusiastic at sport, but pretty terrible at actually playing it, which pretty much sort of wrote you off in the school I was in. My hobbies were rather more nerdy. Liked video gaming, and at the time, like this is back in kind of the 90s, it wasn't cool like it is now. If you were playing video games, you were a target basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I just felt the pressure of all that. I really felt the pressure, and I just felt like I didn't fit. So going to university was quite scary for me. I only really went because I didn't know what else to do, and my parents said probably a good idea. But I was quite uncomfortable doing it, being away from home and having all of these kind of challenges was difficult. Like everyone else, I guess out there, I had quite a hateful voice going on up here.
Yeah.
So the inner critic, which I didn't know it was called at the time, to be honest, but he was a bully up there.
Yeah.
So I got into university and I was still struggling. I was living with 3 other guys I'd never met before, which is my idea of hell. Yeah, I think in particular at university, again at that time, things have probably changed now, but the emphasis was on drinking and meeting up with the fairer sex, whether whoever that might be. And again, I just didn't fit that mold.
Yeah.
I didn't like the pressure it brought, and I guess it manifested itself in quite a negative way for me, because when I started drinking, it just changed my personality.
Yeah.
And it probably brought to the surface a lot of the challenges I was having with my anxiety, with probably feeling quite depressed, and it just made those things 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And it ended up manifesting itself as suicidal thoughts off and on for about 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And that was really difficult, because at the time I just didn't have a clue what was going on. It was super scary. I used to leave the nightclubs having drunk quite a lot, and on the walk home I'd just be thinking, well, there's a railway bridge, or I could just take a couple of steps out into the road and maybe all of this kind of pain I was feeling could go away, because I just didn't have any sense of self-worth. I didn't feel like I was attractive in the same way that society expected me to be.
Yeah.
I wasn't out every night bringing people home, which was again the mentality at that time, rightly or wrongly. It didn't feel comfortable to me, because that's not who I am.
So when you were having those suicidal thoughts walking back, because I had much the same through my early 20s.
Oh, did you? Okay.
I just thought it was a normal thought, even though it was a weird thought of me thinking of those things. I thought it was normal, because I had no education in suicidal thoughts, or had no understanding of it. So I just sort of, in them days, passed it off as, well, it's just normal. Everyone must do it.
That's super interesting. I don't remember at the time feeling very much, to be honest. I think I personally, I was terrified by it.
Yeah.
With hindsight, maybe there was a level of normalcy to it, but I just felt sheer terror at the fact that I was considering taking that step. I couldn't process why I was feeling like that.
Yeah.
What changed for you then? So when did it change? When did you think, did you have a moment where you think, okay, this is what I've got to do, or this is how I've got to change things?
It's quite interesting, because when I kind of share my story and when I talk to other people now about it, most people go down the route of, something clicked in them and they decided to seek counselling, or they went to the doctor. But I told no one about it. I mean, I could barely face into it myself. I didn't tell my housemates, I didn't tell anyone. I just lived with this cycle for 6 or 7 months, and it was really difficult. I think it started to improve as I started to actually develop more of a rapport with the people I was living with. And I think the reason for that is because it actually made me start to realise that I could be friends in a group of guys and actually be respected by them, and actually add a level of value to that friendship that I'd never seen previously. I also sort of started to I started kind of a relationship with someone that I'd known previously. So it started as friends, so there was absolutely no pressure, and it just developed, which again for me was like quite a natural way of doing it, rather than going out drinking and then meeting a stranger. And that's the bit that I struggled with. So those two things, I think, just massively boosted my confidence. And then almost, not overnight, but it didn't take long until I just didn't feel like that again.
Yeah.
The feelings just subsided. I think probably because I was starting to build a bit of self-confidence.
Yeah.
And naturally, my self-worth was getting boosted and I started feeling better. So for me, it was slightly different to a lot of people, because there wasn't as much intentionality around it. It was a little bit of luck, I suppose.
Yeah. Because your mental health journey carried on. You've been very open and honest about how you felt, but you've done a lot within your workplace as well to open that conversation up and change things around, and making it okay to talk about it. Because as you said, when you were in your student days, as soon as you start talking about it and recognizing or forming different kind of relationship, you realize that you feel better about yourself. And within the workplace, you've done the same thing, haven't you, really, by having the conversations and opened up so that people actually feel like they have a safer space to talk.
Yeah, so that was about 17 years ago. And when I kind of went through university and moved into the world of work, that experience was put in a box. I locked it and I threw away the key, because I just didn't, whether I didn't want to think about it or I just still didn't really understand it. I don't know which one of those it was, but 2 years ago, I just had one of these random opportunities that presented itself to just talk a bit more about myself. And I just, for some reason, I don't really know why, I decided to open up about my mental health. I think maybe because in the public, more people started doing it. And I kind of figured, well, I've got to make the leap at some point, because maybe this could help someone, maybe it can't. And I think maybe for me, I needed to talk about it, maybe to finally try and face it, because I haven't really faced it up until that point. So when I shared my story, the response to sharing my story just unlocked this purpose and this passion that I can't control. It's a really bizarre feeling, because up until now, I really haven't had like a purpose. I've never felt like I knew why I was here.
Yeah.
Now I feel like I know the reason I'm put on the planet. And that's a really powerful force, a really powerful sense of energy comes from that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you've had a bit of similar. Stu had a similar kind of thing with that, because once he's opened up about it, he can't shut up.
I don't shut up about it now, yeah. And that was
like all the time.
That was probably like 10 years ago, I think, that I sort of got forced into an opportunity to do some public speaking.
Okay.
And like I did all of my communication and all of my venting, I suppose, on a blog.
Oh, great!
And
yeah.
Someone asked me to do some speaking before a sponsored walk down in London. And I said yes, put the phone down, and was like, what the am I going to speak about? And it just sort of snowballed from there, really. And yeah, I don't shut up about it. And it comes from the passion that you've got. I never want a bloke to go through the suicide attempt, and I've still got goosebumps then, and it still scares me, that hour that I had walking to the bridge and stuff. I never want a bloke to have that, and it's the biggest. It's preventable. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Like diabetes and cancer and stuff aren't preventable sometimes. Yes, it's with your diet and smoking and stuff, but suicide is preventable. Yeah. It's the outcome of something that can be stopped, and that's what my passion is.
Yeah, I mean, I love that what you say just completely resonates with me, and I think men talking about it is quite rare, but kind of quite powerful. And to be honest, I never even considered that. I never considered that I was kind of the stereotypical set that me talking would help. I was purely talking because I just thought it would help. I didn't consider that, because of my age and my gender and my ethnicity, that would create such impact from talking.
Still think there's a lot of stigma. I personally think there's shitloads of stigma still in society of blokes being able to talk about their mental ill health. Do you think the stigma's still there?
I think so. I think it's still early days. I think it's getting better. If I look at, one of the things that I guess motivates and inspires me is being able to create a better future for my children.
Yeah.
I can't stop them maybe getting to where I got to, but at least I can equip them in a way that I wasn't equipped to understand what's happening, and to try and recognize what's happening earlier, and to reach out, or to do all the things you can do proactively every day to make yourself feel a bit better. And if I look at kind of their generation and what's going on in the school system, I mean, it's light and day compared to when I was at school.
Yeah,
so I think that generation coming through is in a pretty good place, although there's obviously enough challenges for that kind of middle part of society in the younger space. 18 to 24-year-olds we know are suffering greatly. Yeah. But I still think the stigma exists. I mean, I only told my parents 18 months ago about all this, so they never knew. And I've started to see it with my dad, where he's a bit more open about it, but at first he was quite closed off to it.
Yeah.
And I've still got sort of kind of male friends and relatives now that when I talk about the work I do, I can kind of sense a level of discomfort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I tend to disregard it and push on through because I figure a little bit of discomfort versus maybe getting through to someone is well worth the trade-off.
I've got that from my attempts really, or the year that I had really bad. I've got a whole different group of friends now than what I have. I had to leave quite a lot behind just because
Okay.
I'm quite frank with the way I say it, and when I talk about it, I say, do you know, that night I dangled my feet over the bridge, just to put some, I try and put a little bit of fun because it's real, and they would just turn around and walk off and not even give that the time of day or even let me talk about it. So I've got a completely different friendship group now.
That's super. See, that it's the reverse for me. So the friends I found at university, I do think they probably saved my life to a degree because they're my best friends now.
Oh wow.
So actually, a lot of the male friends I had at school, I realise now weren't friends, and they're the ones that I've kind of pushed to the side.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's quite interesting, isn't it? Really.
I suppose the friends back then, they're doing the right thing because I was at a rugby club, so it was very male bravado, very much how fast you can drink a pint, how many fights you can have in that 80 minutes. But they helped me in a sense of because my rugby was my self-harm, so I'd go on that pitch and play as hard as I could for that 80 minutes to release whatever I had built up. So I suppose they facilitated my sort of therapy in a way while I was there, but it's just a little bit different now. I don't need that, and the relationship.
Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry, I'm
knocking
knocking her out.
That'd be good for the YouTube video.
Next week's wife beating it is.
Yeah, I find it quite interesting how people actually go through their lives and having those kind of experiences and then end up doing all the work that you're doing, for example. And you recently become This Can Happen ambassador as well, which is fantastic. Because the way that you portray yourself and the way that you are in the workplace is a good, positive way of starting changing the conversations. And I think there's still a lot of work to be done in many workplaces. I won't mention any name, but some companies have actually said to me, take me off your mailing list because we don't want to be involved, which I find quite amazing that workplaces say, no, we don't want any free information about mental health and how you can help your employees. What do you think how do you hope or feel or want the workplaces to develop and be in, let's say, in the next year or so?
So I think in the workplace in general, in the network I've built since I won the award and since I've been a bit more active, to your point, there are good and there are bad. I think some of the things we probably need to improve on is just the recognition that sometimes you've got to face into the difficult topics.
Yeah.
But I've seen examples where, and this isn't my workplace in particular, it's just generally, where you might be quite happy having a conversation to signpost someone to your in-house employee assistance program, or you might be quite happy to talk around some of the fluffy stuff. But when it comes to a topic like domestic abuse, for example, these are facts, they're things that are happening to massive swathes of our country. I find, in my experience and some of the dialogue that I've had, some workplaces aren't that keen to face into it. It's almost like that part of our employee, they sort of leave at the door, and it's like, well no, they don't. These people are people, and we should be encouraging people to bring 100% of themselves to work. And if that's the case, whilst they might not be actively reaching out for support, we should be putting the support in place so that if they're on the internet or if they're Googling that, oh yeah, look, actually that is me and I am suffering from that. And whilst I might be suffering in silence, I know that I'm being supported, even if it's silently.
Yeah. It's so much better for the company as well, because it just improves their productivity in whatever they're doing. If their staff are happy and they're looked after. It's a
win-win.
If you're struggling with something at home and then you go into work and then all you're doing is getting pressure and no help for anything, then surely it just seems ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but this is the thing. It does happen, doesn't it? But and then again, these times we can talk a little bit about COVID and everything and how you found the whole lockdown situation. I know that you have done a massive amount of fundraising. You actually getting by dressing up in different outfits for every single Zoom call you've done, right?
Yeah. So when lockdown started, I guess I'm grateful that my experience of lockdown broadly, I mean, it's been good.
Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm very open that it's roller coaster, right? Some days I feel great, some I feel low. But we started doing the PE with Joe Wicks, and every Friday he was doing a fancy dress version of that workout. So with my children, they're 4 and 6, they're at that age where dressing up is quite magical to them and really fun. So we were doing Joe Wicks, and then I didn't take the outfits off. I just, to be honest, I needed to just get to work because the Joe Wicks finished so late. I had to just get going. And I thought, you know what, it'll be a bit fun. I'm curious to see what the reaction is. So I started showing up to all these calls in fancy dress. And very quickly I realized it was really silly, but incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
It's just like a simple change of changing your appearance. I found that a lot of video calls are quite robotic. You get on the call, what's the agenda? How long are we going to be? I'm looking at my watch, I'm disengaged, but you rock up wearing the costumes I was wearing, and people just do this, and there's big grins and smiles, and people start engaging with you, and becomes more human.
Yeah.
And I just realised that, oh, okay, this is quite interesting. So I did it for a few weeks, and then I said to my wife, I'm going to give this a go and do it a bit more. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to set myself the challenge. I want to do it for every day in May. And she just looked at me and just said, why do you want to do that? And I kind of explained to her, it would just be a lot of fun. It's something a bit different. It gave me a bit of a focus, if I'm honest, like selfishly. And I knew my children would love it.
Yeah.
So I set myself the challenge, and I thought I might as well try and raise some money for charity. So I think I set my target at 750. My wife said to me, you're barking mad, and you should be setting your target about 300. I was like, no, I'm gonna go for it. So I set up like an Excel plan. I'm a bit of a planner. I had a different costume for every day. I looked at when my biggest meetings were, or when my meetings with the most senior people were, because I'd wear the most outlandish costumes. So I basically wore these costumes. So I dressed up as like a flower, I wore a toga, which didn't leave much to the imagination. I did like Maverick from Top Gun, Harry Potter, and the costumes got more elaborate. And then I found like the Zoom backgrounds, so I started sort of putting myself into the characters. And it was just the most incredible experience. So I've raised nearly £3,000 so far.
Fair play.
For NHS, for Mental Health UK, and for Alzheimer's. So in two of that, well, all three of those have touched either me or my family directly, unfortunately. But yeah, I raised all this incredible amount of money. My colleagues really got involved, and then I found myself on Zoe Ball's Radio 2 breakfast show talking about it. Early on tonight, I was on BBC Three Counties Radio talking about it. So it's just been really bananas.
I knew we'd get on well. I did fancy dress for every exercise class because I'm a PT. So we set up a group full of our members, and I did a fancy dress every, was it Monday, Wednesday, Friday or something for my classes. And I think I got 21 outfits I went through, and then I got banned a couple of times off Facebook because they're too revealing. But I knew we'd get on well with a fancy dress.
See, I had to filter it to make sure it's safe for work.
Yeah, this is it. When's your 100th? You're doing a whole, I know you tagged me the other day, you're doing a whole thing on the 100th day or something?
Yeah, so I finished, so I got onto Zoe Ball on my last day, and that was like a massive highlight. And then the day ended, and I went like out onto my road here. I was dressed as an inflatable dinosaur, and everyone came out of their houses.
Oh.
It was like I did a tour of the road. It was really bizarre. All these kids were coming out, and it was just amazing. Like, it was such a high. And I'd kind of had this idea around trying to break a fancy dress themed world record, because I thought it's just such a good way to keep up the momentum, because fundamentally this hasn't really been about me. It's been about my children, but it's been about a much more important message. It's just more subtle, around the need to talk, and around the need to be conscious with our mental health, and around the things that you can do these crazy little silly things and they make a massive positive difference.
Yeah.
I couldn't get the world record, mainly because the process is horribly convoluted. So it takes about 16 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Guinness want about £1,000 to actually look at the submission. And I thought, well, I could pay £1,000. It'd be a stretch, but then I might as well just give the money to charity. So it's pointless.
Yeah.
And then I came up with this idea that I think is probably more impactful and will help people, which is ultimately the reason I'm doing it. So on 1st of July, Wednesday the 1st of July is the 100th day of lockdown in the UK. So I'm going to bring back one more costume, and I'm basically trying to get as many people as possible to join me, take photos, tag me online, use the hashtag. And I'm genuinely hoping we can lift the spirits of the nation a bit. Because if enough people do it, I really think it can have a meaningful difference. And I've already got like Wave, who were big winners at This Can Happen. I'm pretty sure their entire business is going to be doing it.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm in.
There you go. So the more people that can do it, the more, the bigger the impact.
Yeah. I may have to borrow a costume though, because I haven't got any. So.
Could just be a hat or a pair of sunglasses. It doesn't have to be too big.
Right. Yeah.
There's no point in that, mate.
I'm going big, but
Yeah, I'll go big as well. Yeah.
But it's fantastic that you're doing it. It's a great job that you got so much money for a charity as well. It's absolutely fantastic. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you wish for the future for mental health? What would be like the ideal? I said something, I've talked to some other people, and we said that the day that the conversation can happen around mental health, same as you do about physical health, that would be a good one. But what would you be a dream wish for mental health in the future?
I mean, one of them is relatively simple, which is just that we all recognise we've got it, and that we recognise and we're okay with the fact that we won't always feel great. Because I think I've probably felt the pressure throughout a lot of my life to always be optimistic and positive, and whilst that is great, it's just totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of these influencers and celebrities, some of them do portray this quite dangerous picture, I think, of what life is like, and for most of us, life is not like that.
Yeah.
And I think it can be really dangerous. Sorry.
And to be honest, their life isn't probably like that.
Well, of course it's not. It just can't be.
No.
Statistically, it just can't be like that. Now, I would love to be in a place where everybody around the world could wake up in the morning and think, you know what, I just don't feel great today. But because I don't feel great, there are things that I can do proactively that might make me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because that's, I think, at a basic level, how we can start to drive intervention. Whereas if you get into parking serious mental illness, because that does need genuine professional help and medication. For a lot of us, when my mental health was good, and then it veered into this very dangerous territory over a period of time. I genuinely think if I'd taken more proactive steps at a younger age, I don't know whether I would have avoided it entirely, but I would have been better equipped to deal with it.
Yeah. Like we've said before when we do talks, it's like you wake up in the morning, you've got a sniffy nose, sore throat, and a cough. You're like, right, I've got a cold. Get out of bed, and you get your Vicks, tissues, whatever you need for that day to be able to live with that physical ailment of a cold. So when you wake up in the morning and you feel shit, why can't you sort yourself out to go and do something for that? It's just not
exactly
in the same box.
No, we don't think about them in the same way. So I guess my wish is sort of similar to yours. It's just framing it from a different point of view. So that's why I use things like the form score, just because it allows me to check in with how I'm feeling, and it lets everyone else know how I'm feeling, and therefore you might get a slightly different reaction one day to another, and just to kind of give me a little bit of wiggle room, I guess, and a little bit of empathy around that.
Yeah, exactly. I think as well the perception of everything having, as you said with the celebrities, but also perception that you put upon yourself of how you're supposed to be or how you're supposed to act. I always think I've got to be the best mum, the best at my job, the best at everything, have a clean and tidy house all the time. But a lot of those things throughout my life, I've learned to just go, oh, it doesn't really matter. Just let go of it.
Yeah.
Time, doesn't it, really? And resilience and learning, it's like you learn with anything. So if we can teach our kids about their mental health earlier on, then that helps as well. I mean, I harp on sometimes to my kids about recognizing how they're actually feeling, and that every feeling is valid. I always say, yeah, that's fine that you're annoyed, or that's fine that you're upset. You're allowed to be. Might not change situations sometimes that you're feeling the way you're feeling, but it's good to let the feelings out. So, having that opportunity to be honest.
I've lost you, sorry. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Oh, I've got you again.
There we go, yeah. Our internet went unstable, apparently.
I could see you talking. I thought I'll just give it a second, and then you look like you asked me a question. I thought I didn't lip read quick enough.
To be fair, mate, I look at Henriette most of the time and nothing's coming out. I don't hear anything. I just
That's charming.
Oh no, this is it. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just saying about the fact that I don't know what you do with your children, but I always say to my kids that every feeling is valid. So
Yeah.
you're upset or happy or angry, whatever you are, it's all okay to. It might not change the situation, but you are allowed to feel what you feel. And I think because in the olden days, you know, we used to say to boys don't cry, or don't cry about that, and don't get angry, and yeah, all these things. And changing the language early on, I think, with kids will help that, so that generation, when they grow up, they will see things differently.
I completely agree, and we manage our children's emotions in the same way. If they need to vent an emotion, then that's cool. We just try and talk about it afterwards.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that children understand that nobody is the world's definition of perfect.
Yeah.
No.
and
You
like
can't be perfectly behaved all the time. You will have days where you reflect, you think I could have handled that differently, but that's just life.
with educating kids now as well, with it's different from when we were a kid. If they have films like Inside Out. I don't know whether your kids have seen that.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
And there's all their personalities in the brain working on how the brain will work, and it's a brilliant way of explaining to the kids that there is an anger part of you, there is a sad part of you, there is a happy part of you, but it's how you live with that.
Yeah, I mean it's super important, because I think in my own experience, part of the reason I got to where I did is because I didn't recognize how I felt, and I just pushed it down.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's like a pressure valve. It exploded, and then it took me to some pretty dark places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what have you got coming up? You got that on the 1st of July. Anything else exciting happening?
Well, obviously This Can Happen ambassadorship, which has just been announced. So that's been pretty incredible, considering the journey I've been on there. So that's been amazing. I'm looking to try and partner up with a few charities, hopefully. So I've got a few conversations happening with one local charity, because I'm looking at how I can support kind of more locally.
Yeah.
As well as doing everything I do sort of more nationally. And I'm also talking to a charity that provides a service that I think would have helped me at the time that I was struggling. So I'm just kind of in conversation with them. So that'll be pretty interesting. I've got a couple of other bits. I've been nominated for a couple more mental health awards, but because of COVID, they're all been pushed back. So I'm against some incredible finalists. It's just, I still struggle to process it all, to be honest. It still feels quite surreal that I'm kind of even talking to you and doing all the things I'm doing, because when I set out, just when I first shared my story, I had no intentional plan. It was purely just, I just want to see if this helps.
Yeah.
And that served me really well. So whenever I look at opportunities, I always sort of look back at that. Is this sitting genuinely at the heart of why I'm trying to do what I'm doing? Because if it doesn't, I'm getting much better now at saying no to things, or putting my energy into things where I make the biggest difference. So I think right now it's quite easy to be tempted, because it feels to me like there's so much in this space, and there are probably people out there that maybe aren't in it for the right reason. So I'm using my kind of moral compass to help me navigate it.
That's a different conversation for me and you, Nicholas, off air.
I
didn't name any names. I was careful.
When we turn it off, we will start naming names.
But we agree. There's exactly the same experiences that we've had. That there's a difference of how people get involved. Yeah.
Can you ride a bike? I
do.
Because we're doing a challenge next year, cycling to every Premiership rugby team in 7 days. All for men's suicide awareness. 12 clubs for 12 men a day that take their own life. So
wow.
Whereabouts do you live?
In Hertfordshire.
Where's that? That's sort of east.
It's basically middle of the country, near enough.
Oh, right, okay, cool. So yeah, we're cycling around the country. So maybe one of the days you can jump on your bike and meet us and do a few miles with us.
That'd be good. I was just going to say, when you said you ride a bike, I really should have asked you to be more specific, because as soon as you said about like that kind of challenge. I don't ride a bike like that, but a couple of miles I'm good with. 100 miles, I probably need to train for that.
Yeah.
We can at least
Yeah,
try.
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be good. Can you hear us all right?
Yeah.
Cool. The internet's so good. Well, I think we want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for
Pleasure.
coming. Good luck for the 1st of July.
Thank you.
And good luck for everything that you're doing. I think that the reason that you've done so well within mental health in the workplace and everything what you do is because that you're full of integrity, and that is always a good thing. So I think that's credit to you for keeping everything as you do.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you.
Yeah, thank you again, and maybe get you back on a little bit of time in the future once you've won all these awards. And
I don't know about that. If I can get back on Radio 2 again, though, I'll be very happy.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. Excellent. Thanks for your time, Nick.
Really lovely to talk to you both, and really good to meet you.
Yeah, brilliant. Take care, buddy.
We'll catch up soon.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. Have a good one. See ya.
Goodbye.
There we go. Nice lad.
He is a lovely lad. He is a nice lad. He's just really down to earth and always very integrity driven, which I quite like.
Yeah, that was episode 5. And at the beginning of the thing, I said episode 4 because I forgot a interview that we did. I won't name the name because he'll get upset. But yeah, it's episode 5. Episode 6 will be coming soon. I think yes, it will be. All right, and that's it, isn't it?
That's it for this week.
Yes. So
go follow Nicholas Jemetta on LinkedIn as well. He's there. He does a lot of good work.
Please like and share us videos. A bit on my head, I think. I love the big box over my head. Follow us on YouTube, and please share amongst all the socials. Because like we've just been speaking about, it's all about conversation, all about education. So the more people that listen to the blog, hopefully they'll learn a little bit to take onto workplace or to the family or just themselves, really. Mm-hmm. Okay. So take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Follow the podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Just search The Mental Wind Down. Listen anytime and anywhere.